Got a sunburn to peel the daggers off your tongue. Young and dumb, I'm rotting like a bed sore in a cold case that's never gonna be more than scratching at the walls while you're waiting for a bullet to come. All along I've been treading in the deep end. Throw my mirror in the cupboard for the weekend. Try and put together pieces while I'm dreaming, but nothing's adding up to a thing but a hole in the head.
Woke pirates, yes they're robbing, sold out to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. Out long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs. Redemption songs. Redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs. Redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs. Redemption songs. Redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, troops? Jeff Evely, the Magnanimous GenX'er Male, back with you now on this third day of April 2024, and I practice radical candor. Shiloh was the first one on the board over on Rumble. Says, not late tonight, Sergeant Major. Got the new timing down. Let's see if the schedule works out with my daily home duties. I certainly hope so, brother. I appreciate having you around here. I know I just kind of threw it out there like a few podcasts ago. I said I think I might switch back to the evening spot. I think ultimately it's probably the best move for me because I'm doing the Voc Rehab, the March of Dimes, as they call it. And I just have these appointments every damn day during the days. So I ended up missing a couple there last week because I had appointments and stuff like that. Anyway, I moved it back to the evening basically to kind of keep up the ops tempo when it comes to the podcast. So I really hope it works out for you, bro. And Teresa is saying hi. Hi, Teresa. Thanks for being with us. Evelyn says hello. Holly says good day, everyone. Colleen says good evening, folks. Prepared Canadian says LFG. Yes, indeed. I am looking forward to this one. And Cindy, our most faithful of all watchers, says, good evening, Jeff. Hart's dinner and a show. Excellent. Hi, friends. Okay, great. I'm glad it's working out for you guys. I hope the regulars don't mind the new time slot. And Rosaire says, I love every one of you guys. And God bless all of you, and thank you for everything you do. Amen. Well, it's my pleasure. I know that. That's why I'm here. I don't know what the hell else I'd be doing if it wasn't fighting for Canada. It's basically what I've been doing with my whole life. So I guess it's not going to start anytime soon, or it's not going to stop, I should say, anytime soon. So, and here is Steve says, seems like morning. Seems like the start of new days every day. Jeff talks. I appreciate that, bro. At least there is that to consider. And Wendy says hello all and gives us hearts. All right, thanks for everybody for being on board. I'm going to dive into this sucker, and we got our philosophy quote here for the day. Second day in a row, Friedrich Nietzsche made the cut here. He says, sometimes people don't want to hear their truth. Let me try this again. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. Sound familiar? Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of the time people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. And I remember, well, a guiding mantra of mine for my entire adult life has been, I prefer harsh truths to comforting lies. It's just something I read in a Carl Sagan book when I was a teenager, and I thought, words to live by. And so I did. And I think that has everything to do with why I was not fooled by the propaganda. I didn't buy into, there must have been $1 trillion spent on propaganda to take those jabs. And I just wasn't buying into it because I go looking for those harsh truths no matter what. And it has been my experience over the course of my lifetime, I guess the last 25 or so years since I read that the harsher the claim, the more likely it is to be true. That is just the nature of reality, I think. So that is what we try to, that's why I say I practice radical candor, because that's what we try to do around here, is we try to share those harsh truths and eschew the comforting lies. Okay, and here is our meme for the day. And we have a couple of RCMP officers in their green jammies, so tactical gear. And the first guy is saying, why are we dressed up like this, boss? Are we fighting ISIS? And he says, no, just beating up unarmed protesters again. Yeah, way to go, RCMP, on improving those public relations over the last few days when it comes to the carbon tax protests. And we'll talk about that as we move into it. But here is our dear leader, Justin Trudeau, and Matt Alexander, who's a friend of E4F, is tweeting this out. He says, remember when Canada had only 2% of the population comprised of temporary immigrants in 2017? I do. Now it's 7.5%. The PM told us we have a housing, healthcare, and employment crisis. Easy solution, send them back. And he says to go to Andrew Lawton for the longer vid. There is some longer versions of this video floating around out there. I decided to go with the 17-second clip because it's a pretty noisy clip. There are some protesters who are beating on some drums, and good on them for holding this guy's feet to the fire. But for the purposes of just showing the Prime Minister's statement here on the program tonight, I think this 17-second clip, it seems like the drums are a little bit toned down in this one. So here we go.
In 2017, 2% of Canada's population was made up of temporary immigrants. Now we're at 7.5% of our population comprised of temporary immigrants. That's something that we need to get back under control. In 2017.
So yeah, right from the Prime Minister himself, he is now basically taking the position of Maxime Bernier circa 2017. And just a reminder here. Okay, here is Globalist News, and they're saying Trudeau says temporary immigration needs to be brought under control. And somebody was just asking. Phil was just saying, I saw a video of George and his chiclets were still there. So I hope that everybody's okay out there. I did not see that video, but Lori is saying, no, it wasn't. I guess it wasn't violence. It was just intimidation. But yeah, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if something did go down like that. I didn't see it yet today, but if I missed it, let me know and we'll go into it. Okay, so here is Globalist News, and they're saying Trudeau says temporary immigration needs to be brought under control. So they're actually putting this out here, and it is the same clip basically, but I'll let it play a little bit here.
Temporary foreign workers or whether it's international students in particular that have grown at a rate far beyond what Canada has been able to absorb.
You don't say. Yeah, and who did that? I love how he says, that they've grown beyond our capacity. Like these things just happen somehow. Oh, it just grew. It's like a fungi or something like that, a fungus. And he is the guy who did this, for crying out loud. These things don't just happen. I mean, it takes a lot of ineptitude at the top.
Now we're at 7.5% of our population comprised of temporary immigrants. That's something that we need to get back under control. So we want to get those numbers down. It's a responsible approach to immigration that continues on our permanent residents as we have, but holds the line a little more on the temporary immigration that has caused so much pressure in our communities.
Yeah, quite the tap dance there, buddy. and he's trying to put it all on the temporary immigration, of course, as opposed to, Jesus, just the hordes of people that he's been bringing in here through all streams of immigration, all streams of migration. I would say it's more like migration because there's a lot of illegal immigration as well. And now the Americans are even talking about illegal immigration coming into the U.S. from their northern border, because a lot of migrants are coming here and realizing how god awful it is to live in Canada. And they're like, yeah, I'm getting out of here. And they're either going back to the countries from which they came, or they're heading south to the United States. So well done, everybody. All right. And here is a look back. This is also globalist news. Everybody remember this? The headline is Trudeau unapologetic after telling heckler, quote, your racism has no place here. Oh, okay. And what made her racist? Well, it was demanding that he actually foot the bill, the federal government foot the bill for the expenses incurred by Quebec as a result of his tweet that said, Canada welcomes you. Yeah, that was the one. If you're fleeing persecution and blah, blah, blah. It was intended to be a direct repudiation of Trump's shithole countries comment, I believe. And then, well, I mean, that's where it all started. And here we are several years later, and he's doing a complete about face on it. But here's a look back. Remember how this all started? Here we go. Oh, so it's in Francais, and he's saying, well, let's see. They have the subtitles here at the bottom. It says, heckler, quote, we demand that you refund the $146 million to the Québécois that was given to illegal immigrants.
Une des choses importantes, madame, en politique,
and then he says, ma'am, one of the most important things in politics is to listen. Who's the politician in this scenario? She's a citizen. Like, he is the one who's supposed to be listening to her.
On est en dialogue.
You can have a dialogue, he says. Okay. And she says, quote, but you're not answering my question. But answer me, Mr. Trudeau.
On est ici pour échanger, pour dialoguer. J'ai bien hâte de vous écouter, si, à condition que vous m'écoutiez, madame.
She says, do you have something to say to me, madame? Oh, Trudeau is saying, do you have something to say to me, madame?
Vous avez quelque chose à dire, madame? Allez-y.
And she says, quote, I want to know when you're going to refund the $146 million we paid for illegal immigrants.
Nous remettre les 146 millions qu'on a payés pour vos immigrants illégaux.
Okay, madame.
And he says, okay, madame, this intolerance towards immigrants has no room in Canada. This intolerance towards...
Et nous autres qui a payé pour ça.
L'intolérance par rapport aux immigrants, ça n'a pas sa place au Canada.
And, you know, I'm sure you guys caught this, but I'll go ahead and highlight it. She didn't say anything about illegal immigrants. She was talking about the money that he owes them. So she's saying, I want to know when you're going to refund the $146 million we paid for illegal immigrants. So the $146 million is the subject in this sentence, and we paid for illegal immigrants is the predicate. And so the illegal immigrants is contained within the predicate. That is a secondary noun. The primary noun here is the $146 million. So she's literally talking about the $146 million. And of course, he made it all about the illegal immigrants. This is a tactic of the left, you know, where they do the bait and switch on the subject itself, whatever it is that's being debated, and make it about some tangential issue. And that's what he's doing here. He's making it about the immigrants when she was making it about the expense. And here he is saying, okay, ma'am, this intolerance towards immigrants has no room in Canada. This intolerance toward, okay, and he gets the crowd cheering. Yeah, this is crazy.
Canada. Cette intolérance par rapport à la
Yeah, well done, you bunch of trained seals. It is a liberal rally. And she comes at him again. This is as he's making his way through the crowd, and he's just kind of pumping the flesh and all that. And she says, quote, Mr. Trudeau, are you tolerant towards true stock Québécois? And he says, ma'am, your intolerance, your racism has no place here. Your racism has no place here.
Répondez-moi, vous non plus, vous n'avez pas votre place au Québec. Avez-vous compris? Vous n'avez pas votre place au Québec.
Answer me. This is the heckler again. She says, answer me. You don't belong to Quebec.
Je suis fier.
And he says, excuse me, madame, I am a proud Quebecois, ma'am. I am a proud. Look at the face on him, too. Okay. I wanted to back that up there for a second, but these videos on the Globalist News, their video player is not the best. Okay, so look at the frickin' face on him. That's what gets me, because I was kind of lining this up here, trying to get an image of his smug face. And look at him. He's leaning right in there. Yeah. He might as well like put his thumb on his nose and wiggle his fingers at her. And he's got that usual smug, arrogant look. Look at that. Eyes half closed. Oh, there goes the nose. It's up in the air. Shame on you, he said. Shame on you for asking a question, you racist, about $146 million. It's racist to ask questions about money. Okay. And here is wokeness. And they're saying a top official in Denver was just caught on tape begging illegals to leave the city. Denver newcomer liaison, quote, any city, we can take you to the Canadian border wherever, close quote. He promises that there are better stuff awaiting in Chicago and New York. Denver is a self-designated sanctuary city. Yes, and leftist ideology always
opportunities are over. That's Andres Carrera, political director for Denver Mayor Mike Johnston.
Nueva York te da más, Chicago te da más. Entonces sugiero que vaya por allá, donde hasta también con un albergue de más largo plazo, también hay más oportunidades de trabajo por allá.
Carrera is Denver's so-called newcomer communications liaison. That
Somebody said, Tom is saying, oh, this is when Funky tried to arrest her. That is not in the Globalist News clip, but thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah, Globalist News cuts out the part where the RCMP officer drags that woman who looks to be in her 60s probably by the arm, and he's actually applying like a shoulder lock on her, similar to a Kimura. And he's saying, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. And what did she say to him? She was awesome. Anyway, she said, she was like, maybe you should have some balls or something like that. She took her arm back from him. She ripped it right away from him. She was like, leave me the hell alone. And then he did. It was like, well done. She definitely did have some balls.
means that he meets the busloads of new arrivals. The city says this group got here on March 26, sent up by Texas's Republican Governor Greg Abbott. He warns them the jobs, the resources, the opportunities have already gone to the 40,000 migrants who came to Denver before them.
Hemos recibido demasiados migrantes y por eso se acabaron los recursos. No, mira, no te vamos a bloquear. Si quieres permanecer aquí, no estoy aquí para bloquearte. Estoy aquí para avisarte que tu camino no ha terminado. Si permaneces aquí, vas a sufrir hasta más. Y eso no lo quiero ver.
Says if you stay here, you're going to suffer even more, and we don't want this. Yeah, what does that say for the rest of us?
Parents listen quietly as children play on the floor. As Denver tells these families that have sometimes walked from one continent to another that they just have to keep moving, but they don't have to walk. Denver will buy them a bus ticket.
Tu camino no ha terminado. Tu camino no ha terminado. Que viajas un tantito más. No tienes que caminar por ningún parte. Podemos comprarte boleto gratuito. Puedes ir a cualquier ciudad, hasta la frontera de Canadá.
There he is. You can go to any city. We can take you up to the Canadian border, wherever. Ah, wonderful. Yeah. So the Democrats in the U.S. who really are kind of the OGs of the mass immigration for the sake of importing a new voter base from the third world to secure unending power for the left ad infinitum. They are, they're running away screaming from their own policies at this point because they're imploding. Their institutions, their facilities, everything. It's being overrun. Okay. And I mean, of course, that's what's going to happen here if we continue down this path. But we see Trudeau himself is actually, I mean, I don't think that guy's ever going to do a mea culpa, but that's about as close as we're going to get. It looks like he's actually turning a bit. His position is shifting real time as we watch. And here is Jake Shields. He's a former UFC fighter who is surprisingly woke, and he is tweeting out, imagine if groups of white men were roaming the streets of New York City and beating up Black women for sport. It would be the top news story in the country, and they would be facing 20 years in prison. Instead, we are getting zero news coverage, and they are being released without bail. This is equitable justice. Yeah, that is what they mean when they say social justice, by the way. It's not justice. It's what Rex Murphy did a whole article on what the word incompossible means in the National Post. And I have to admit, I wasn't familiar with the word incompossible before Rex Murphy put it out there. The guy wrote a dictionary after all. He was saying that, you put the two words together, like justice. We all know what justice means, but you're putting a qualifier in front of it. You're putting another word in front of it. It's social justice, which is to say it's not justice that we're talking about anymore. We're talking about something else now. As you can see, it's nothing like justice. It's more like chaos. And I'm putting this up here because Jake Shields, like I said, is surprisingly woke. And here he is highlighting this issue of the two-tier racially segregated justice system in blue districts in the United States. And for all intents and purposes, all of Canada is a blue district. Yeah, we're pretty familiar with this phenomenon up here. Okay, and here's Wall Street Silver, and he says, just in, homeowners in the UK have been told that, quote, compulsory selling of home, close quote, will be enforced to house illegal migrants. So is this where we're heading? I mean, if Justin Trudeau were not revising his position as I speak, then I would say, yeah, this is exactly where we're heading. This is the agenda. It's to drive us out of our houses and homes, have us freezing and starving in the streets, and we'll just be taking orders from the Chinese before we know it. So here is the clip from the UK.
Suzanne, where are we going to put these people? The uncomfortable truth, as far as I can see it, is that we are going to have tent cities of asylum seekers popping up around the UK.
Well, I think you summed it up beautifully, Patrick, just the huge pressure that we're seeing now on accommodation, and that does seem to be the only answer. But I'm actually a little bit more worried than that, because I think this is all getting very sinister now. We know that we've had people who have been told that their properties are going to be compulsory purchased for asylum seekers. That pretty much tears up private property rights in this country. I was listening to the radio on the way here, and they were talking about a massive problem facing Britain, which was older people living in houses that were, quote, too big for them. Who's got a right to tell you your house is too big for you? You should be allowed to live where you darn well like. And the implication was very clear. These elderly people are taking houses that they shouldn't have. And I fear that's a worry, that there'll be some kind of move to get them out of those houses. We've also had the horrible scenario last week when Matthew Paris, writing in the Times, talked about how euthanasia wouldn't be a bad thing if it encouraged elderly people to hasten their own deaths. So what? We've got to pop our clogs, have we, forcibly, when we're 60, 70, 80, 90, perhaps earlier, if we're not productive people in society, as Matthew Paris said it. So I think the whole thing now is getting really, really sinister and scary.
Yeah, that's straight out of a dystopian novel. I'm not sure which one, but there is a dystopian novel out there where it's like once you reach a certain age, you're expected to just kind of walk into the death machine, the suicide machine. It might have been an episode of Star Trek that I'm thinking about, but anyway, yeah, straight up dystopian stuff here. Yeah, and we see the same problems all across the West. And Rob was just pointing out that the UN Compact for Migration essentially forbids media from reporting unfavorably about migrants and migration. I was not aware of that particular detail about the compact, but that definitely does make sense. Thanks, Rob, for always chiming in with your 2 cents. And Ashley is saying, National Post story on CAF soldiers in Ottawa for cyber training relying on food banks. I think I showed that here yesterday. Just briefly, I showed it wasn't the National Post though. Maybe it made the National Post today. It was a smaller outlet previously. Yeah, and this is I was showing it because it's like this story is coming out on the same day that they're announcing this national food program for in elementary schools, right? Like this lunch program in elementary schools, for crying out loud. So they can't even feed their soldiers while they're on training, but they think they're going to feed the nation's children. And by the way, what are they going to eat during the summer? So, okay, here's libs of TikTok, and they're saying, breaking, the quote, migrant TikTok influencer, close quote, who mocked Americans who, quote, work like slaves, close quote, and gave tips for squatters to take over Americans' homes, has reportedly just been arrested by ICE in Ohio, according to Fox. Okay, so some good news there, folks. So there was this guy. You know what? I don't even know if I had a chance to talk about this because, like I said, I had to miss a few episodes last week because of appointments and stuff like that. But this guy, this border jumper, was on TikTok telling everybody what a bunch of suckers Americans are and how they have these stupid laws where if you can get into somebody's house and claim squatters' rights, then you can basically steal their house from them. And then you can even sell that house. He was saying all of these things quite brazenly, as often these people are. Too many of them are not coming here to become like productive members of our society, of our team, and too many of them are just grifters that are going to take advantage of all the hardworking people and, you know, frankly, naive people here in Fortress North America in particular. We're pretty detached from a lot of the world's problems. So, and here we are importing the world's problems. The world's problems are people, by the way. It doesn't really have much to do with geography, and it's got everything to do with culture. Okay, and here's some more good news on that front. Here's Peel Regional Police. Remember this guy? This was a road rage incident there. A bunch of Indian guys got out of a car and came and smashed somebody's windshield in a road rage incident. They had their camera rolling, and they had a dash cam and stuff like that too. So Peel Regional Police is saying arrests made in road rage incident. So this guy apparently, or it's arrests plural. So I guess maybe they got not just this guy who smashed the windshield, maybe the other guy who kicked the headlight as well. And we'll see what comes from that. But at least the arrests have been made. So that's oh God, Colleen is saying, and the blizzard begins. If it stays, there'll be 15 to 20 centimeters by morning. If not, it'll be a skiff. And I don't know what you mean by skiff, but yeah, we're looking forward to some of that out here on the Atlantic coast as well. So I have seen enough snow for my lifetime, I swear, just in the last year. Just in the last season, we had 160 centimeters there one day, and then 2 days later, I had another 80. It was just ridiculous. And here's Rebel News, and they're saying CBC brings on a quote unquote expert who quote doesn't want to talk about politics, close quote, but accuses conservatives of spreading quote unquote misinformation about the carbon tax. Professor Nancy Olweiler says the tax is about changing behaviors in a positive way of tackling quote unquote affordability issues. Okay, only a professor could believe something so absurd.
We want to bring to the Canadian public the information that studies and research and data has shown that address some of the misinformation that is being spread across the country. The price of food attributable to the carbon tax has gone up by 0.3%. Now that's not nothing, but it is not doubling your price of food. It's not
I don't believe that is the total cost either. Bottom line, they probably looked at one factor in isolation and said, you know, this is our tiny little cost associated with this, but it's not the total cost. It's not the full picture, right?
The 1% even price of food. So yes, it does flow through to some extent, but we're missing the point about the carbon tax.
Yes, boomer female. Oh my God, she loves to lecture. Cora saying, middle-aged Karen liberal, this the downfall of our society. It really is the boomers, okay? They really are destroying the West.
And prices in general. The price is there for several reasons. One is to say, look, it is expensive to burn fossil fuels because it is contributing to climate change. And the cost to Canadians in the future, and even right now, of climate change are growing and astronomical. So ask people when they can't get insurance because of climate change, were you willing to pay?
That's because of ESG scores, by the way. That's because of BlackRock and their ESG, why people can't get insurance for certain properties anymore. It's all contrived.
Another 0.3% for food to help fight climate pollution.
The Conservatives, and I know that you don't want to talk politics, but the Conservatives, did talk about this letter. They said that, when.
Right. So he wants to plug his politics and give it this air of legitimacy by covering for it with the expert testimony.
Asked about it, that they won't be taking advice from so-called experts to listen, and that they want to listen to the common sense of common people. What would you have to say to that?
Well, I don't know. The experts look at the data. The experts look at the fact when.
Okay, whatever. And Colleen is saying, and we all know, not us boomers, just the lefty loonies. Yeah, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is the boomer, the good boomer in Star Wars. Don't forget. So I know we got our Obi-Wans around here. If you're watching this program, you're probably with Obi-Wan. And Terry is saying BS. So I'm not sure what comment that was in reference to, but Terry is one of my favorite boomers. So I know it's just these burnt out hippie radicals, from the late 60s and 70s, who never left the institutions, never had a job when they were in high school, and have no idea what it takes to make things happen in the real world, that have been ensconced in our institutions their entire lives, and now they're running them, and they have no skills because they've just been isolated from challenges.
When I have a problem that requires an expert opinion, like a strep throat, I go to the doctor. So one of the ways to focus on affordability is to come up with climate policies, of which the carbon tax is just one. And the Premier of Newfoundland calling for incentives. There already are incentives. There already are carbon refunds to people. So I'd like to see us talking about things like ensuring we have electricity to meet our needs, because we produce electricity and then we control the prices. So if we're talking about affordability, let's talk about putting our heads together and working together to say, do we have enough capacity to power all of the things that we need? Electricity is essential. We can generate it in different ways, but we have to have it. I'd like to see us moving the discussion from getting rid of a tax to saying, what can we do to protect our children and our grandchildren?
Oh, yes. Jesus.
We want
like frickin' Helen Lovejoy. Oh, won't somebody please think of the children? That's how you know you're being manipulated, right? The appeal to emotion. That's what propaganda does. It manipulates your emotions, okay? So she's not appealing to your intellect here. I didn't hear her mention a single statistic, I don't think, the entire time. Like, there's no data anywhere in her argument. So it's purely a motive standard. So, and Headley Man BC is saying, give a like. Yes, everybody, please give us a like wherever you are, on whatever platform you are, and give me a like. I'm told it helps the algorithm or some such nonsense. So I could use all the help that I can get. And Chet over on Rumble was just saying Jeff is Han Solo. Yeah, I use the Star Wars analogy a lot, and you're not wrong, because Eddie Cornell is Han Solo here at V4F. He is the elder prophet with the gray beard, and I am the midlife nomad. And in Star Wars, that is Han Solo. And Star Wars is a fourth turning, and it starts when the prophet enters his elderhood, and it ends when when Han Solo is the oldest man left standing at the end of Return of the Jedi. Not that we should kill Eddie, but it's just, or the boomers for that matter, but we just got to get them the hell out of our institutions. Okay. And here is some conflicting testimony. Everybody's got, the experts are saying, oh yeah, there's no cost to this. Now, if there was no real cost, if there was no major cost to the carbon tax, would it influence your behavior? Like if it was just pennies on the dollar every time you were buying something and you didn't even notice it, well, then would that influence your behavior? No. The whole purpose of it is to be costly, to cause you pain. That's what they're talking about when they're talking. Well, it's like Larry Fink says, BlackRock CEO, we want to force behaviors at BlackRock, right? So here is some conflicting testimony with that. This is a real person, an actual woman, millennial, and Wall Street Silver is tweeting out some quotes here, but I'm just going to go ahead and play the video. Let her speak for herself. So here she is.
If something is not done with the prices that keep going up in Canada, I will be on the street. I will be literally on the street corner next week, panhandling, asking for some change. It's comical how our wages aren't going up, but the price of everything around us skyrocketing. And it's not near as bad in America as it is in Canada. It's 1,000% worse in Canada. Every aspect, we can't catch a break. Groceries are now like triple the price. I just saw a video on TikTok and this girl was like, isn't this expensive for what this is? And it was a vegetable platter, not even like expensive vegetables, literally carrots, some broccoli, some cucumber, little cherry tomatoes. It was a decent sized platter, but it wasn't anything crazy. And that was being charged $45 for the platter. Over double the amount that would used to be. You know, like a normal platter like that probably would go for about $15 to $20. It's $2.50 for an apple. When you're weighing to get an apple, it's $2.50 per pound for an apple. I haven't gotten a facial in so long. And when I was in high school, I used to go to this facial place all the time and get, you know, my skin cleaned out. It's been quite a few years since I've actually been to this facial place. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to a facial. They used to charge me $50 before tax. And I just looked it up now. It was $89 before tax. We're not doing anything more magical. We're now charging me $40+ more for a facial. That's how much it's gone up. We have the most expensive gas prices in the world. We have the most expensive.
It's $39, but I guess that's some blonde math. I'm going to get myself in trouble. I wish you wouldn't use the example of facial. It makes it sound like a first world problem, which I guess ultimately it is. But we're not going to be the first world for very long, you know, if we keep this up. So, and here is PP and his whole perspective on it. And Roughneck is tweeting out again. Pierre Poilievre refuses to answer the question. He won't axe any taxes, won't slow mass immigration, and won't stop the indoctrination of children. He'll be a lame duck PM exactly as he has been his entire zero accomplishments career. Okay, so this is Rebel putting him on the spot, and In It for Love over on Rumble was just saying, you go to Rebel, so I don't have to. I canceled my subscription after they fed jacketed Jeremy McKenzie, and I had been a subscriber for years, like since the dawn of Rebel News back in 2015. I mean, don't quote me on that. I think it might have been 2016 when I got my full up subscription, but I've donated to multiple fundraisers and stuff that they've done. No more. But anyway, they still do some good work, and here they are putting PP's feet to the fire.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. You've made it very clear if you form government, you will axe the carbon tax. But will you also withdraw us from the underlying United Nations Paris Accord agreement, which allows us to be unfairly taxed on our emissions while giving China a pass?
Well, we will not be unfairly taxed on our emissions, and I will not give China or any other country a pass. We will reduce emissions and costs, but
so the question is about the Paris Accord. Let's just pay attention here and see if he says Paris Accord.
Our approach is completely different than Trudeau's. His approach is taxes. Mine is technology. His approach is to raise the cost of traditional energy that we still need. My approach is to lower the cost of alternatives. His approach is to put up stop signs in front of our workers. My approach is to green light green projects. We need a
Paris Accord.
Massive abundance of clean, green, emissions-free energy by giving fast permits and responsible permits for hydro dams, nuclear power, carbon capture and storage, offshore tidal wave power. These are the kinds of power sources that I will bring home by granting quick but responsible approval so that they can go ahead. That will mean abundant, affordable, clean energy that brings down emissions and the cost of living. Trudeau wants to drive production to dirty dictatorships. I want to bring it home, powerful paychecks for our people. Thank you.
All right, so there you go. And somebody was just commenting on this about her original question. I'll go ahead and just show you one more time.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News. You've made it very clear if you form government, you will axe the carbon tax. but will you also withdraw us from the underlying United Nations Paris Accord agreement, which allows us to be unfairly taxed on our emissions while giving China a pass?
Okay, so it's about getting rid of the Paris Accord because that is, by and large, what underlies the carbon tax, what's driving it. And, you know, he says a lot of things that sound good. I'm not buying the whole carbon scam, really. He seems like he's buying the carbon scam, so I would offer that criticism. But what he's saying is a pretty good answer, but I'm just pointing out that he didn't actually say whether or not he would pull us out of the Paris Accord. So something to watch, guys. Okay, and of course, this is going on. This is the best clip I think I saw all day. I was out on one of the picket lines as well, so I didn't really. I may have missed one or two things out there on social media today, but here is I don't even know where this is, but here is a Canadian woman riding on a horse with an F Trudeau flag. Yes, so that is the best thing that I have seen all day. Okay. Okay, Thomas, you're kind of messing me up there. You were saying where in her question was anything about the Paris Accord, but then he says my bad. Okay, I think we heard it there, guys. I'm gonna keep her going here. So yeah, best thing on social media today. There is a Canadian woman riding a horse with an F Trudeau flag and doing so quite majestically. Okay, so here is Daisy. Canada's favorite muckraker, and he's saying nationwide protest against the carbon tax, day 3. I have arrived at the Ontario-Quebec border. There are a number of protesters already here and more expected throughout the day. More to come. Hashtag axe the tax. All right. Here's the footage.
All right. Freedom, liberté! Liberté! Woo! Casey here. So I have arrived at the Ontario-Quebec border. We are just on the Quebec side. It's Highway 20 and the 401, so just east of the Quebec border. There is a decent crowd here already. Yes, sir. Trucks honking like crazy. There's a good number of people here. We're expecting more to come throughout the day. I'll have more coming. Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, this is good, man. Nice to see some people here. Yes.
All right, sweet video. And Cindy was just saying, Daisy is a traveling man, giving us the victory. Yes, he is. He is all over the place, man. That's why he's Canada's favorite muckraker. And Laurie was just saying, there will be horses out at the protest of Calgary this weekend. I can't wait. Well, that sounds interesting. We will have to keep an eye out for that. And Steve is saying, Battle of the Horses. God. Yeah, that would be an escalation, wouldn't it? But hopefully we can keep her all on the up and up and nice and peaceful and friendly and stuff like that. Although I don't think that the police perhaps share that sentiment. And here is Daisy again. He says, nationwide protest against carbon tax, day 3. Highway 1 near Saskatchewan-Manitoba border is being blocked by RCMP, not by protesters. So he's clearly sharing this from another source. Video source is Dallin Leisure Matt on Facebook. And here we go.
And as you guys can see, there's not a single protester, pylon, nothing on the highway. Let me get up here. I'll show you who is blocking the highway. That is our RCMP here in Saskatchewan. blocking the number one highway. Not a pylon, not a protester, not a vehicle, nothing obstructing any flow of traffic on the highway except for the RCMP, who have now shut down the number one. No traffic moving westbound because of an RCMP blockade on the number one just into Saskatchewan on the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border.
Yeah, and the comments are coming in here. Of course, it's the RCMP. Yep, that's right. And that seems to be the trend that we're seeing across the country too, because we were just showing video yesterday of there was a lady who actually blew the police roadblock there at the Nova Scotia-New Brunswick border and came up to see what all the commotion was about, and realized that no, the highway was not blocked whatsoever by the protests. It was entirely fabrication of the police. I heard, man, I didn't check this out before I went live, but I heard that a bridge actually collapsed over there in New Brunswick. That I'm going to put that in the rumor category right now because I haven't confirmed, but yeah, they were running, you know, a lot of these big rigs across a bridge apparently that was not designed to support that kind of weight. I knew that as of yesterday, and somebody was saying today that there was a bridge that collapsed. I don't know if any of you guys saw that. Let me know in the chats. But yeah, RCMP, whether it's New Brunswick or whether it's at the Manitoba border, seems to be the case that they're not very respectful of the rights of Canadians. And here we go out to Alberta. And Son of a Bench is saying, look at the police in riot gear near Calgary, Alberta. This is a peaceful protest. This is the exact tactic they use for intimidating groups. Where were they when the pro-Palestine protesters were marching in the streets? Wrong narrative. Liberal NDP governments want to quash freedoms and silence your voice. Yes, two-tiered justice depending on whether you are pro-Western or anti-Western. They support the anti-Western guys and suppress the pro-Western guys. So here we go.
With the police involvement here at this level, this could elicit.
And again, that's RCMP. You can see it on their shoulder flashes, right? So RCMP, Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and in New Brunswick are very, I guess, aggressive when it comes to these protests.
An even bigger response, like what we saw at Milk River. Is that what they want? They think they all need to call in sick, take COVID tests, and shut her down and say, I can't make it into work today.
Did you used to have faith in police?
Not really, but now it's really bad because they have tarnished the badge. Like it's I have no respect for them anymore. They should have stood down in Ottawa, but they didn't. So right now what they're doing, they're working for their corporation instead of taking care of we the people. So they're not taking care of us. They're ready to pounce on us anytime, and that's very sad.
They have hundreds of officers, and some of them have automatic weapons.
What are they going to do? You know, they've got too many people down here that just elicits a negative response, and it turns people against them, and then they wonder why. We saw what happened in Ottawa, we see what happened here, and we saw what happened in Coos, we saw what happened in Milk River. It's atrocious that this much money is being spent on this, and we've got as much rampant crime in these communities, and they won't do anything about it, but they'll stand arm in arm against civilians who are just exercising their God-given rights to actually protest the taxes, the carbon taxes, the cost of living, and we've had it.
The protest started yesterday, and it's still going on the.
It's protesting a tax too, whereas when it comes to the pro-Palestine crew, I mean, that's something that's happening on the other side of the world, and Canada is not in a position to do anything about it. So
The second day, when is it going to end?
Well, I've packed for 3 weeks. There's a few of us who have packed enough food for 3 weeks. There are some really nice people in the town close by in Cochrane that have volunteered to come and do our laundry for us. So we would like to stay here for as long as it takes to end the carbon tax.
Seems like the government is expecting this to evolve into Milk River, hence the huge police presence. But let me ask you this: is it time to kick RCMP out of Alberta?
RCMP have no place in this province any longer, and that's what needs to happen here. Is the Alberta government needs to do a patch over and take the good RCMP officers that want to leave this force and become the provincial police force, and we'll leave the rest of these brethren behind. We'll call it a day, and Alberta will set the trail for how we're going to do policing in our own province, and it won't be beholden to Ottawa and the government in Ottawa that pushes these people out here.
And that's courtesy of Mocha Bezirgan. I reached out to him too to see if he's got some time for an interview. He is another guy who was just all over the place too. It would be great to get a catch up in with him at some point. And Laurie was just saying they were literally waiting for anyone to walk across that ditch. If anyone attempted that, I know they would have been arrested. Yeah, that sounds about right. I can't imagine what else they would be there. And Colleen is saying, very well said, young man. Mocha does terrific work. And Cynthia is saying, Mocha rocks. Yeah, absolutely. Mocha is boss. He has been doing excellent work over the last few years. So great to see. And that guy was just saying, yeah, we're going to get rid of the RCMP and we're going to go with our own Alberta provincial police. Just a note of caution on that. I mean, we saw the horses come out in Newfoundland there recently, and that's the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary too. So that's a provincial police force. And they went full militant on their citizenry as well. I do think that the RCMP is particularly problematic, but let's not kid ourselves when it comes to Canadian police forces nationwide. Okay, and here is Maxime Bernier, and he is retweeting the clip that I just showed of Bezirgan, Mocha Bezirgan here. He says, RCMP brown shirts in action. So there is one politician at least who's willing to call this stuff out. And a few of you were commenting on the clip that I was showing there of Pierre Poilievre, and you know how he kind of has to toe that party line about the carbon stuff. So you know he's kind of playing that game, I guess. And I do think that if he gets in, and it certainly looks as if he will, that would be a huge step in the right direction. But at the same time, I also think that he's controlled opposition, essentially. It's the other side of the same coin. They're all subject to the same narratives, and the carbon is just one of them. Don't forget that he voted for Bill C-4 as well, that to jail any parent who tries to protect their child from being sexually butchered into a permanent medical patient. As a result of their indoctrination in schools. We didn't see him say anything about that either. So there is he is somewhat beholden to that woke ideology. So, and as we can see, Max is not. So, you know, it's important to make that distinction, I think. So in here is Without Papers Pizza, and they're tweeting out, a man plays the Calgary police a song on his boombox, subtly infers what he thinks of their tactics. Dozens of police were dispatched west of the city on Highway 1 to monitor Canadians' opposition to the carbon tax. Okay, monitor Canadians opposed to the carbon tax. So here we go. Dale says, hello, trooper. And he's giving us the triple slash. Hello, Dale. Thanks for being with us, but you're late. So drop and give me 20. So well done, whoever did this. I think this is probably the same RCMP. They're saying it's Calgary police. I'm not so sure about that. But, and here we are in my hometown. So this is where I was today. And this is Darlene LeBlanc. She's Freedom for Nova Scotia, and she leads the local chapter here in Cape Breton. And a force to be reckoned with, if I do say so myself. I do admire her fighting spirit. And she's given us the update. We actually had a pretty positive development. I was right there to witness it while I was out there today. While she was chatting with the local police, they did a stop in to check on us, as they do every day. But anyway, here's Darlene.
Hello, everybody. About the news about the RCMP allegedly towing away vehicles at 3 o'clock. We had a concern here. because the RCMP did do drive-by 3 times. So I got a hold of our local Cape Breton Regional Police Services with our liaison, and he came out, we spoke to him, and he has been in contact with the RCMP, and there's been no any news of that sort happening here or going to happen here that he's aware of. And we were told if the RCMP does stop and threaten us with that, that I am to give him Sergeant Keith's phone number, and he can talk with him and deal with it. We are legally fine being on the side of the road the way we are. We're not breaking any laws. We're legally allowed to do what we're doing. They have no right to tow us. So if they decide to tow us or think about towing us or whatever, then we call our liaison, local police, and they will handle it, because he assured us we are not doing anything wrong. We're legally allowed to be protesting the way we are. We're off on the shoulder, inside the white line. We're not obstructing anything. The only issue is if there's a snowstorm and the plows need to go, then yes, we will move our vehicles off the road to not impede the plowing. However, we don't know what kind of storm we're going to have, but we will be prepared. But we're still going to be here, whether we're on the side of the road or in on the little park here. So we're still going to be here overnight. Anyway, just wanted to update you on that. On our end, I don't know how they're dealing or happening in the New Brunswick-Nova Scotia border, because apparently there was 3 tow trucks parked at a gas station not far away. So I don't know, according to our information, they really didn't go well on day 1. They kind of put their feet in their mouths, and now they're trying to deal with it the Trudeau way, I guess, for a better word. Anyway, I think we're good here. Nothing to worry about. All we need is support for participation. Come down and grab a sign, have a coffee with us, share your story.
All right. So there you go. If you're in Cape Breton, get your ass down to the Newfoundland Ferry there. Highway 105, last exit, right there, on your way to the ferry. And yeah, like she's saying, so what happened here was the liaison officer for the Cape Breton Regional Police showed up there to have a chat with her. There was this rumor that had been going around earlier in the day that said that the RCMP were going to show up at about 3 p.m. To tow everybody from the side of the road. I got there at about 2 p.m. and I mean, it turned out to be just a rumor, but there was this liaison officer there from the local police, the regional police. And yeah, I mean, I kind of eavesdropped, of course. I went in and snooped a little bit, and he was quite good. He was quite reasonable. So bit of a mixed bag, you know, across the country. And here in the Atlantic provinces, you know, we tend to be pretty sleepy, and we tend to vote Liberal because we have a lot of seasonal workers who like their unemployment. But we tend to be quite feisty at the same time. And also, we have that local police department, right? So these are community police officers. They are born and raised here. They live here, which is different from RCMP. They tend to come from elsewhere. They tend to move around like the military does and get posted to all kinds of different areas where they may not have a connection to the local community. So I think that lends itself to more of that brown shirtery that Maxime Bernier was just referring to there. Okay, and speaking of the brown shirts, here is one quick dub, and he's putting this out there. Resist the urge to Fed post, #Dialon. Quote unquote, share please. This is Jeremy McKenzie. This is from his Telegram, and I saw Morgan Mayhem tweeting this out as well. But here's a screen cap from Jeremy's Telegram. It says, the Premier of Nova Scotia, who had Morgan and I arrested and charged for questioning his authority, now has his private security, very poorly, following us around amidst a developing court case where he is implicated in crimes. This is also the same province where law enforcement legitimacy is ambiguous at best, burying and destroying evidence, fabricating evidence, Portapeak witnesses, quote, committing suicide, close quote, Bell Communications servers destroying emergency calls being wiped, and so on. If anything happens to Morgan and I, it was not any accident or suicide. Videos, photos, and statements have been provided to lawyers and distributed to others for safekeeping. If I see these men following us again, I consider it a threat to mine and Morgan's personal safety and will react accordingly. And he says, share, please. So, yeah, feel free to spread the word on that one there, guys. It's a hell of a thing, the hell of an era through which we're living through. Okay. So, anyway, we hope that Morgan and Jeremy are safe, obviously. Here's the National Compost. This is Christine Van Gyn. A solar eclipse is not an emergency, and declaring it one is awful. All right, let's get a look at this. So, Christine Van Gyn, she is what is it? Constitutional Freedoms? Anyway, lawyer. She's with a not-for-profit organization. I'm trying to remember which one. It's not the JCCF. It's one of the other ones. I think it's like the Constitutional Foundation or something like that. But she's awesome, and she's got an awesome YouTube channel. And here she is. This is a solar eclipse is not an emergency, and declaring it one is unlawful. So this is with respect to Niagara region, declaring an eclipse declaring an emergency for the eclipse that's coming up in 6 days. So it's a state of emergency because they're going to have an eclipse. If you don't believe that they're drunk on their power, they got a real taste of what they can do, and now they're drunk on it, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is beyond absurdity at this point. Okay, so subtitle: Increased tourism combined with 2 minutes of darkness does not constitute a, quote, danger of major proportions, close quote. Ford should rescind Niagara's declaration. This should go without saying, but apparently it must be said, a solar eclipse is not an emergency. The solar eclipse will be visible in parts of Canada on April 8th, and in Ontario, there will be just over 2 minutes of darkness starting around 3:18 p.m. This is certainly exciting, but based on the reaction of some safety-obsessed officials, you would think it is somehow dangerous, beyond the risk that some might damage their eyeballs by staring directly at the sun. To the consternation of parents of school-aged children, school boards in some parts of the province have canceled classes, citing, quote, safety concerns, close quote. Safety concerns. It's a shadow. They're literally scared of a shadow. Okay. In Niagara, Regional Chair Jim Bradley announced on March 28th that the entire region, from Grimsby to Port Colborne to Niagara Falls, was entering a state of emergency under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, EMCPA. Bradley said this was, quote, to accommodate this once-in-a-lifetime event and out of an abundance of caution, close quote, because Niagara Falls is expecting an increase in tourists for the event. An abundance of caution, that really is kind of that's the preferred prefix of the aspiring tyrant, isn't it? It's always out of an abundance of caution. For your safety, comrade. Back to the article. This is all over the top, and in the case of Niagara's state of emergency, illegal. The region's councillors should rescind their unnecessary invocation of the act, and if they don't, Ontario Premier Doug Ford should rescind it for them, which he has the authority to do. The statutory definition of an quote-unquote emergency in the EMCPA is not met by an eclipse. An emergency is, quote, a situation or an impending situation that constitutes a danger of major proportions that could result in serious harm to persons or substantial damage to property, and that is caused by the forces of nature, a disease or other health risks, an accident or an act, whether intentional or otherwise, close quote. So none of this stuff has happened. These are not emergent circumstances. This is something that is actually forecasted, and it's a very regular event like the weather. Good on her for pointing this out. And I mean, I was talking about this at the time too. This is just crazy. It's not a virus. It's not even bad weather. It's just tourists. Tourists constitute an emergency. Okay, back to the article. An increase in tourism combined with less than 3 minutes of darkness is not an emergency. If it were, New Year's Eve, the Toronto International Film Festival, and many protests and other large community events would all be emergencies. If this goes unchecked, it is a virtual guarantee that future activists will argue that various social issues also constitute quote-unquote emergencies under the EMCPA. We all know this because it's already been done. In fact, Niagara region is a leader in expanding the scope of what constitutes an emergency. In February 2023, Niagara declared a state of emergency over homelessness, mental health, and opioid addiction. In that case, Bradley said this declaration was to send, quote, a signal to the province, close quote, that these issues constituted an emergency requiring, quote, additional funding from the province, close quote. Yeah, it's all politicking and grandstanding and drama queenery from the sounds of it. While these are serious social issues, they are not emergencies under the EMCPA. Even Bradley seemed to acknowledge this earlier in a memo to the Regional Council in 2021, when he wrote that such a declaration would be, quote unquote, symbolic, and it does not grant access to provincial funding, and that the EMCPA, quote, was not designed to address social and economic problems of an ongoing systemic nature that cannot be resolved in days, weeks, or months, close quote. The same memo also cautioned Council that such a declaration may set a, quote, precedent for similar declarations to be made in the future, as well as an expectation that there will be additional resources allocated, close quote. Yeah, you're precedent setting, right? So now every time we have an eclipse, you're going to declare an emergency. Indeed, this is exactly what happened, and Niagara region has once again issued a performative declaration of an emergency. Niagara Falls Mayor Jim Diodati said on CBC News incorrectly that the declaration would unlock provincial and federal funding. A performative declaration has consequences because the EMCPA comes with some real powers. The principal grant of authority to heads of council is laid out in section 4.1, which allows the head of council to take such action and make such orders as are necessary and are, quote, not contrary to law, close quote. There is some debate about the scope of this authority. According to Lyle Skinner, a constitutional lawyer specializing in parliamentary and emergency law, Ontario's EMCPA may be used to do things like impose a curfew or ration goods. Just imagine how these powers could be used if we permitted emergency declarations over social issues. Yeah, these are constitutionally enshrined rights, and elsewhere. It's not just our constitution either, like the Declaration on Human Rights from the UN, for crying out loud. That putting people under curfew. Yeah, that would be a clear violation of the rights that they would never be able to do if they weren't declaring these fake emergencies. I've had enough fake emergencies for one lifetime. Okay, back to the article. In this case, all the region has done so far is order April 8th closings and cancellations for a variety of public services like child and family centers, public health offices, parenting courses, and seniors community groups, including programs in communities as far afield as Port Colborne, more than 30 kilometers away from the crowds of Niagara Falls. Even if closing these services was necessary, it would not require a declaration of an emergency. Large crowds can be managed by police using existing powers under the Highway Traffic and by activating emergency operations centers at physical locations where the leadership of the municipality can gather to collectively support emergency response for monitoring, as often happens during large events. None of this requires the declaration of an emergency 11 days before a 3-minute eclipse. 3 minutes. The good news is that the EMCPA gives Premier Ford the power to rescind this illegal and illogical invocation, and there is precedent for Premier doing just that. In New Brunswick, the town of St. Stephen declared a state of emergency over homelessness, and the province's safety minister rightly rescinded it, warning the town that a state of emergency should only be used for, quote, imminent threats. Yes, exactly. It's for imminent threats. That's what, like, emergent means, emergent circumstances. Okay. The trend of municipalities declaring emergencies over social issues or increased tourism must be stopped before it gets out of control. And Premier Ford should act on the opportunity to do that now. Yes, thank you, Christine Van Geyn. That is well said. So, and here is everybody's freaking out about this eclipse. I mean, I understand why everybody's head is on a swivel. Like it's like they're always trying to do something. I'm not seeing a reason to be concerned about the eclipse, even with the Niagara Declaration. I mean, I think that is a trend that needs to be nipped in the bud. The emergency measures being declared over nothing. That is definitely something that needs to be nipped in the bud. But beyond that, I'm not really seeing like the global threat here, just for what it's worth for you guys. And here is Space Weather News, and he's got this quick video here, about 3 minutes long, on the eclipse emergency.
Good afternoon, folks. I hate that I have to make this video, but here we go. With the solar eclipse happening in a few days and about 1 billion conspiracy theories going around the internet, let's break down one thing that's relatively stupid and then something legitimately concerning. First, just when I thought I'd heard it all, I found a new level of internet lunacy the other day. Someone was saying that this entire eclipse thing is fake because the purported track of the shadow is going the wrong way, they said. Their quote, "Look at how the shadow goes west to east. That's not how the sun moves. The sun moves east to west over the earth. So this entire thing must not be real." Yeah, I'll take a moment to do this one in visual form. Shadows go the opposite way of the light source. For this, I need a desk, a pencil, and the flashlight on my phone. I'm moving the light back and forth, and we're going to see what the shadow of the pencil does. In this example, my flashlight is the sun, the pencil is the moon, projecting the eclipse shadow onto the earth, which is being played by the desk in this video. You see how the shadow moves in the opposite way of the light source? I know some of you must be laughing at this point, but that post has over 2 million views on Twitter. Yes, this is what you are supposed to see. When the light moves one way, the shadow moves the other. So yes, the shadow should be projected moving west to east, and the northern track that we have is due to Earth's tilt at this time of year relative to the sun. But the serious thing I want to mention, we all know the thing they pulled the last time an election year came around. I have been waiting for another one this year. A virus isn't going to cut it this time. So what's the plan? That's a good question, and I don't know the answer, but I can tell you this, they're running out of time. Now, eclipses happen 2 to 5 times a year. That's every year. They don't cause calamity or earthquakes or even have more than a mild psychological impact. Shooting sounding rockets into the ionosphere happens all the time, and this is not the first time NASA has done it during an eclipse. All of their missions get weird names, by the way. But I would not put shenanigans past the government, especially after living through the last 4 years. I can assure you of this. If something major happens during the eclipse, they did it. I'm just going to say it plainly like that. If something happens, the government did it. That wouldn't shock me. And I'm not talking about a solar flare or something. It is sunspot maximum, so that may even be said to be expected. I'm talking about something major with the grids, the internet, social unrest, military action, etc. If something happens, it was done on purpose and likely to begin interfering with the 2024 election process. Hate to say it, but I said it. I'll see you in the morning for the Daily Show. Be safe, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, they did They did declare the COVID pandemic in March of 2020, which was, exactly 4 years ago. So right about now is the time that they would probably ramp up whatever it is that they have in store with us to steal the American election in November, like they did in 2020. I don't see this being it, though. I don't know what advantage the eclipse really provides. It's I don't know. I'm not seeing it, guys. So I'm not terribly concerned about the eclipse. I think that everybody's head is on a swivel, and there may be some paranoia out there. And somebody was just saying there was brain damage in the shots. Yeah, I think that's actually true. But anyway, it's making for some good entertainment in all of this, at least. And here is Karina Sad, and this is another muckraker who seems to be everywhere with her cameraman. And she says, in contrast to the other May Day demonstrations, anti-faux cosplay anti-fascists were preoccupied with shady behavior. A familiar face stood with the man holding the quote-unquote genocide banner. He hid behind a pole to mask up when he saw me, then hit my cameraman. Yeah, so where are the cops on this one? So here is the clip.
Go home, fascists! Fascists, go home! Go home. Oh,
trying to record people who clearly don't want to be recorded.
Fuck off. Don't hit me. Fuck off. Don't hit me. Get the fuck away from me. Don't hit me. Get away. Don't hit me.
Yeah, and that is all too common, I think, in Karima's experience, because Circulon was retweeting this, and he says, pretty sure Karima Rules' cameraman has taken more shots to the face than Stormy Daniels. I couldn't resist. That was pretty good. And here we have another demonstration going on. They don't seem to have the horses or the tactical gear on for this one. And Gad Sad is saying, recently outside of a synagogue in a residential area, filmed by my wife, wherever Jews are, these noble calls for the erasure of Jews take place. So here they are in a Jewish neighborhood. This is not, the Israeli government. It's not the Canadian government. This is just a Jewish neighborhood. And here we go.
To the sea! Palestine is almost free! From the river to the sea! Palestine is almost free! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! To the sea! Palestine!
From the river to the sea, and that is the call to genocide that I have been calling out since all of this started. And a couple of people were just pointing out that, yeah, they started ramping up the riots and stuff right around this time in 2020 as well. Well, March would have been when they declared the pandemic, and it was the summer of love when the riots really ramped up with the fentanyl overdose of George Floyd. That, of course, they spun to make it appear as if he was murdered. Now, Derek Chauvin, I think, is still in jail for, arresting somebody. And he got stabbed like 20 times at one point because, of course, they told everybody that he's an awful, evil white supremacist who killed a black guy. So, it's just atrocious what they've done to anybody who represents anything like a problem for their narrative whatsoever. So, and here, I think I showed this one yesterday, but I'll show it again. This is another example of the kind of protests that are allowed in Canada. This is Never Again Live podcast. And they say pro-Hamas supporters outside the Israeli embassy in Ottawa chant for Israel to be destroyed. They are wearing masks to hide their identities. Israeli embassies are on high alert worldwide. I bet they are.
والله راجعين غصب عنهم غصب عنهم والله لا نرجع فلسطين يا فلسطين فلسطين يا فلسطين شعبك كله مهديين شعبك كله مهديين شعبك كله مهديين شعبك كله مهديين واحنا شعب الجبارين واحنا شعب الجبارين نموت وتحيا فلسطين نموت وتحيا فلسطين والله راجعين الله تكبير حكومة كده بتخوفهم تكبير 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 والشهيد حبيب الله والشهيد حبيب الله لا اله الا الله لا اله الا الله والشهيد حبيب الله والشهيد حبيب الله. So show up, and don't be tired, and don't give up, and don't be cold, and don't be hungry, and don't be anything until justice is free, until Palestine is free, inshallah. Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine!
And I don't think I saw any cops anywhere in any of those clips. It's not hard to tell what's going on. It's if you're in the progressive movement, which is a movement to destroy the West, then you're allowed to demonstrate because you're demonstrating in favor of the destruction of the West. And Hamas is part of the global progressive movement, according to Judith Butler. So they're allowed to protest. But if you are pro-Western and you want to protest the current anti-Western regime, then that is verboten. Okay, and here is Andy Lee, and she's saying Slimane Espida works for Palestinian Authority, fundraisers to traffic people from Gaza, exploits them for money, and lives in Canada. He's a con artist, a human trafficker, and a liar. What are we saving him from? So she's retweeting this GoFundMe. This is somebody tweeting out this GoFundMe from Slimane Espida, help us escape the war in Gaza. So he's here fundraising off of this, and this is what the guy looks like, what is this? His LinkedIn, maybe. Okay. And I don't have a LinkedIn. I probably should. And here, the highlighted passage here on this write-up says, we will spend around $80,000 on this payment before it gets late and the borders between Gaza and Egypt are closed. Okay, so I'll read the whole paragraph there. It's not very clear. The money will be spent on fleeing from Gaza to Egypt, as they are asking for $5,000 per person just to get to Egypt. This counts 21 members, including dad, mom, 3 of my children, my wife, and me, along with my 2 brothers and their families. Quote, we will spend around $80,000 on this payment before it gets late and the borders between Gaza are closed. So he's saying that this is to help him escape from Gaza, and Andy Lee is saying that he works for the Palestinian Authority and fundraises to traffic people from Gaza, exploits them for money, and lives in Canada. And that's what it says right here on his LinkedIn profile. As you can see, it says Canada. That's where he lives. He's not in Gaza. He's not fundraising to escape. He lives here and he's human trafficking. Okay, and I should mention this. I have been covering, I know it's the war in the Middle East, and really, like, there's nothing we can do about what's happening over there in the Middle East, but I talk about it because we have Hamas holes taking over our streets here in Canada. And as Andy Lee showed us a few episodes ago, she uncovered the funding train for these people, and because they were all bussed in. Like I did an episode with Daisy there, was called Busloads of Hamas holes, and they were all bussed into Ottawa and completely took over the streets. It was way too much for the OPS to be able to deal with. So then the question arises, well, where is the funding coming from for these buses and so on and so forth? And Andy Lee uncovered that it goes back to some NGOs who are Hamas affiliated. And of course, Hamas gets their funding from UNRWA, who get their funding from us. So ultimately, the Canadian taxpayer is paying for this stuff. So this is a Canadian issue, really. Like, Hamas is basically projecting force inside of our borders. And so that's why I think it's important to talk about this. It's one of several reasons. Plus, it's just a matter of saying what's true, and there's an awful lot of speculation. And I am I am reluctant to say it, but misinformation out there around this. They are engaging in a propaganda campaign coming from the Hamas side. So I try to call that out. It's a good exercise too, to be able to kind of spot that stuff too, to spot the propaganda. But here is Bella Wallensteiner, and she says IDF mistakenly targeted the WCK vehicles because they thought they were Hamas terrorists. They have admitted to the attack, apologized, and investigating this tragic incident. You will never see a video like this from Hamas. That's why I picked this one, is because I don't think I could have said it any better than Bella did here. She says, you will never see a video like this from Hamas. So what happened was they bombed part of the Al-Shifa hospital, which, by the way, got leveled like a few days after the October 7th massacre. According to the Hamas propaganda, they said that hospital was leveled and everybody inside was dead or something like that. And the Western media, in particular the New York Times, reprinted that Hamas propaganda complete with the photo op that they did verbatim. So it's not the Jews who control the media, guys. Like the New York Times wouldn't have been doing that if that were the case. It's the progressives, right? And it's the boomer generation who are it's their editorial perspective, because they make up the editorial boards and do the hiring and firing. And they hate the West. Those communist hippie bastards who dodged Vietnam, they hate us. So yeah, there was an incident where they ended up killing several, I believe it was 7 employees of the World Central Kitchen, which was an NGO there that might have been affiliated with Doctors Without Borders, because Doctors Without Borders were saying something about this and getting called out pretty bad, because well, they were given the progressive perspective on it. But okay, I'll let the IDF guy say his thing here, and just a reminder, you'll never see a video like this coming from Hamas. The IDF is saying they made a mistake. These militants have been using hospitals, schools, playgrounds, you name it, as their bases of operation. This has been the tactic of Hamas since the mid-2000s. And they use human shields, maximize civilian casualties on their side, just for the sake of getting that propaganda win. But this time it's not propaganda. They really did screw up, and here they are admitting it.
Last night, 7 employees of the World Central Kitchen were killed. WCK is an organization whose people work across the globe, including...
Yeah, this is the Al-Shifa hospital we're talking about, and Rob is pointing out that that was basically the Hamas HQ in Gaza. That is my understanding as well.
Including in Israel, to do good in difficult conditions. The IDF works together closely with the World Central Kitchen and greatly appreciates the important work that they do. The IDF completed a preliminary debrief. I want to be very clear. The strike was not carried out with the intention of harming WCK aid workers. It was a mistake that followed a misidentification at night during a war in a very complex conditions. It shouldn't have happened. The initial findings were just presented to me here in the Southern Command. I also visited the new Humanitarian Command Center that we established today to improve the way we coordinate aid distribution in Gaza. We will continue taking immediate actions to ensure that more is done to protect humanitarian aid workers. This incident was a grave mistake. Israel is at a war with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. We are sorry for the unintentional harm to the members of WCK. We share in the grief of their families as well as the entire World Central Kitchen organization from the bottom of our hearts. An independent body will investigate the incident thoroughly. We will complete it in the next coming days. We will learn from the conclusions and implement them immediately. We will share in full transparency the findings of the investigation with the World Central Kitchen and other international relevant organizations. We see great importance in the continued delivery of humanitarian aid, and we will keep working to facilitate this vital effort.
There you go. Yeah, it is the fog of war, a tragic situation, of course. Every life is precious, and friendly fire incidents are some of the most tragic incidents that we see in war. And, you know, don't forget, we had the Tarnak Farm incident in 2002 in Afghanistan, where 4 Canadian soldiers and many others, 4 Canadian soldiers died and many others were wounded by Major Harry Schmidt, who is a U.S. pilot who dropped a 1,000-pounder on them, even after he was told to hold his fire. That doesn't make the United States our enemy. That makes one individual, exercising poor judgment in a heated moment. These are the kinds of things that do happen in war. Friendly fire all the time. Not all the time, but it is to be expected. Here is the IDF owning it. So I just wanted to do that compare and contrast because, like I said, you won't see that coming from Hamas. Now, here is the National File, and they're tweeting out this clip of RFK. So this is moving into some vaccine stuff, but they say the top organization that managed warp speed was the NSA, a spy agency, Robert F. Kennedy, and they have some quotes lined up here. I'm going to go ahead and play the clip for you guys. This is what Kennedy is out there saying now. They're saying that the warp speed was, it was Donald Trump who declared Operation Warp Speed for the purpose of front loading the R&D for the vaccine, but we've been under the impression that it was the pharmaceutical companies driving the bus on this, and RFK is out there saying, no, it was the NSA.
The top organization that had managed warp speed was not HHS, which is a public health agency. It wasn't CDC or NIH or FDA. It was the NSA, a spy agency. That was the top agency, the lead agency on Operation Warp Speed on the pandemic. And the second agency was the Pentagon. As it turns out, the vaccines were developed not by Moderna and Pfizer. They were developed by NIH. They're owned, the patents are owned 50% by NIH. Nor were they manufactured by Pfizer or by Moderna. They were manufactured by military contractors. And basically, Pfizer and Moderna were paid to put their stamps on those vaccines as if they came from the pharmaceutical industry.
Let's look at your thoughts on Operation Warp Speed there, ma'am.
It's not warp speed. It's been happening since June 10th, 1980, when I walked in that military installation called Fort Detrick. They just turned the sign around with then President Richard Nixon. Oh, we're just going to cure cancer. No, we always just turn the sign around on the bioweapons lab. They made it a historic landmark right there at Fort Detrick, where they had the gas chamber for the ends, where we had they put the plaque up there when we built the new lab. It's all in plague of corruption. It's not warp speed. All of those people are protecting themselves because the government, and they played the game. I don't care whether it's Deborah Birx or Robert Redfield. They injected the military with HIV in the 90s, and they know it. HIV PNL43. I know the plasmid. I know the exact one. I know the people they injected it in, and that's the data we have in our freezer.
Okay, so some pretty explosive claims coming out there. We'll see how it bears out. Anyway, this it's hard to tell, but yeah, I mean, my understanding is too the DoD, like it was the authorization to do the research for the mRNA vaccines was approved for the purpose of a countermeasure, right? So like a biological warfare countermeasure, which makes it a bioweapon. It's a subcategory of bioweapon, the countermeasure itself. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had they wouldn't have been authorized to do this. So DoD definitely does, Department of Defense definitely does have their fingerprints all over this. Something to keep an eye on, and we'll see what washes out in the near future. And here's Peter Sweden, and he is tweeting out. He says, "It has begun. Italian public prosecutor investigating 19-year-old girl died from blood clots after getting the COVID shot. Share. This should be all over the news." So that is definitely a good sign. That's Sweden. Italian prosecutor. That is Maloney, and she's a right winger. So I have some pretty high expectations for her. I think she's going to be pretty great. And they seem to be turning things around pretty quickly, I think, in Italy, even when it comes to the migrant stuff. And it looks like now they're onto the vaccine stuff. So definitely one to watch, those Italians. And here's Stacey Cowder, and she is tweeting this out. She says, "Arbitrator rules a Toronto hospital had no grounds to fire unvaccinated staff. The bell is tolling for thee." So that's another win that's another one we can put in the W column there. We see these decisions there. It's a drip, 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 very slow. They're rolling in one at a time. But people are getting their day in court, and the mandates are falling. I mean, I know the mandates aren't really in force anymore, but they are being declared illegal, ultra vires, you name it. So, Rob is just saying that's why ivermectin was banned. It was for COVID and would have made emergency authorizations not required. That is true, because if there's an effective therapeutic available, they can't have the emergency use authorization. So that's why they said that it was horse paste. They told us all that it was horse paste because there was money to be made. And so that's kind of why, I guess, as you may have detected, I'm a little bit skeptical when it comes to this idea that it was DOD that was actually driving the bus. I don't really know. What incentivizes them to do that, where as we can clearly see that the corporations were strongly incentivized by enormous profits that they were raking in. And having to suppress the effective therapeutics and so on and so forth. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but that's where I'm sitting right now. It seems to me that it was probably a DoD authorization for the research, the emergency use authorization for the distribution, but ultimately probably more like Pfizer and the pharmaceutical companies that were really the driving force behind a lot of this, and it was probably for money. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out. This DOD stuff is interesting, at least. So we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that. Oh, and over here in Canada, we have here's Tom Quiggin. He's Veterans for Freedom Intelligence Officer, and he's saying the Foreign Interference Commission is now underway in Ottawa. The role of China is front and center. The fact that Sam Cooper is not testifying is evidence by itself that the commission is intended to be a complete whitewash. Sam Cooper is probably the most highly informed person in Canada on the degree to which China has infiltrated Canada's government and economy. He has been closely involved in this research for years. His book is Willful Blindness: How a Criminal Network of Narcos, Tycoon, and Chinese Communist Party agents infiltrated the West. The book makes for fascinating reading as it names the politicians, the police, the casino operators, and the Chinese communist agents who are behind the worst forms of Chinese state-sponsored allowed criminality in Canada. It also names the names of politicians who are in bed with China. It is no wonder why Justin Trudeau does not want him to testify. I have spent days going through this book. Every claim in this book is sourced and supported with verifiable facts. The claim in the book, the claims in the book can be assessed as evidence. The claims are supported to a standard of evidence where they would be acceptable in a federal court, reasonable person would believe, or in criminal court beyond a doubt. You can see his Substack at thebureau.news, and the book is available on Amazon. And again, it's called Willful Blindness. I'm going to have to read that one. There is all kinds of great stuff coming out there now. I'm just about done The Mosaic Effect. I should have been done it earlier, but anyway, I have a massive stack of reading and only so much time to do it. And so this is going to be a good one. Sam Cooper. Yeah, and the opposition didn't even get standing. You know, the Conservatives didn't even get standing at this hearing. Don't forget. So you know, and they would have been the ones who were targeted, definitely impacted by the foreign interference, because the Chinese wanted a liberal minority government, and that's exactly what they got. So maybe they're good at this. Okay, and here is David Mulrooney, and he says Han Dong says international students voted en masse in his liberal nomination. He believes that the students lived in a residence in Seneca College and recalls that they spoke Mandarin. As a result, he believes that they were likely Chinese. Yeah, no kidding. Okay, here is the article. This is National Compost, and the subtitle is "The Liberal Party rules state that people may vote in the nomination contest if they are over the age of 14 and ordinarily reside in Canada." Independent MP Han Dong, that's right, he left the Liberal Party, right? So he stepped back because of the scandal around this, basically. And he replaced another MP, and there was the whole behind the scenes shady deal to get him in there and get the other guy out. And he was apparently involved with some discussions around the two Michaels and how the Chinese should hold them for a little bit longer, because that will be better for the Liberals in the upcoming election, and all of this stuff. So he is pretty heavily implicated in all this. Okay, independent MP Han Dong said he was suddenly reminded by his wife days before his testimony that the public inquiry into foreign interference that a bus of international students, likely of Chinese descent, had voted in his nomination contest for Toronto's Don Valley North riding in 2019. Oh, really? He just forgot all about that. In the lead up to, like, just in the days leading up to the public inquiry, he had to be reminded of that by his wife. Color me skeptical. Don testified at the public inquiry on Tuesday. He sent a written submission to the inquiry the day prior on April 1st, 6 weeks after he was interviewed by the commission's lawyers. He said that he did not know, quote, whether all those students voted for him, but believes that it is likely most did, close quote, because he visited the school, which he identified as NOIC Academy, formerly known as the New Oriental International College, based in Markham, Ontario, as part of his campaign. Why would there be anything but a Canadian college in Canadian territory? Like, if you want to go to an Oriental college, and you notice how they say Oriental and not Asian. Are we allowed to say Oriental, or do we have to say Asian? Because they call themselves Orientals. So if you want to go to an Oriental college, maybe you can go to the Orient. Back to the article. He said he encouraged the students to support his candidacy, but volunteered and registered as a Liberal Party members if they were eligible to do so. His submission to the inquiry reads. Didn't they have his name written on their arm? I seem to remember that from somewhere, that they got off the bus with his name written on their arm. Probably because they can't speak English that well. Quote, he believes that the students lived in a residence in the Seneca College and recalls that they spoke Mandarin. As a result, he believes that they were likely mostly Chinese, close quote, it said. The national director of the Liberal Party of Canada, Azem Ishmael, said in an interview with the commission lawyers that this activity was, quote, compliant, close quote, with the party's rules. People may vote in a nomination contest if they are over the age of 14 and, quote, ordinarily reside in Canada, close quote. He further, we should shore up that vulnerability. I think this seems like a vulnerability to our democracy that needs to be shored up. He further explained that the, quote, ordinarily reside in Canada, close quote, requirement is generally satisfied where the voter has proof of a Canadian address. Dong's former chief of staff, like, how many foreign students do we have here? There's, this is the one, it's an enormous amount. It's like in the millions now. So all of these people get to select leadership candidates for our political parties. That is definitely, I think, a vulnerability that needs to be shored up. Dong's former chief of staff, Ted Loco, contradicted that statement, telling the commission that students would have to be permanent resident of Canada to vote in a Liberal nomination contest. Liberal membership rules make no mention of permanent residency. The deputy mayor of Markham, Michael Chan, Michael Chan was the guy who worked this whole deal behind the scenes to get Han Dong in there. Into that particular seat for that leadership race, where, of course, he got the Chinese students to vote for him. The deputy mayor of Markham, Michael Chan, served as a member on the board of governors at Seneca College, but said he did not know anything about the busing of Chinese international students to Dong's nomination at the time. Chan said he was traveling frequently to Cambodia, trying to set up a business during that time. Chan has faced allegations in the past of being tied to Beijing, which he disputes, and an Uyghur minority group withdrew from participating in the inquiry over the presence of Chan and Dong, which it said put members at risk. Yeah, that's because they're affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party. He says he was traveling frequently to Cambodia. How much you want to bet that he was meeting with CCP there? There was also some confusion with the number of buses rented during the nomination. Dong said in his interview with the commission's counsel that his wife, Sophia Cao, who worked on his campaign, rented a bus to transport party members, mostly seniors, to vote for his nomination in 2019. He recalled at that time that there was one bus. He said he remembered afterward that there were two buses rented by his campaign. Dong said he did not know who arranged or paid for a third bus that was used to transport students to his nomination contest, nor did he know if there was any coordination between his campaign team and the students. I'd like to get a look at the rules on that. Where's Elections Canada on this one? Is this allowed? Dong struggled with his recollection of specific details surrounding his nomination to the point where Conservative MP Michael Chong's legal counsel, Jib Van Ert, said in a heated exchange that Dong's memory, quote, at times seems a little weak, close quote. Dong was elected for the Liberals in 2019, but stepped down from caucus last year after reports by Globalist News related that he was in direct discussions with Chinese diplomats. The story alleged he told the Chinese to delay the release of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, who were held prisoner in China at the time because it would help the Liberals. Dong has denied the allegations and filed a lawsuit against Globalist News. Former Special Rebel Rapporteur I can't even say it right. Former Special Rapporteur on Foreign Interference, David Johnson, disputed Global's story in his report last year, but noted that there were, quote, irregularities, close quote, in Dong's nomination process and, quote, well-grounded suspicion, close quote, that the activities were tied to the People's Republic of China consulate in Toronto, with whom Dong maintains relationships. Oh, my God. Yeah, that was a complete whitewash with David Johnson as well. He didn't even interview Blandrew Shear without the dimples until the until the report was already written and gone for translation. Like, he was targeted. Blandrew Shear without the dimples. I mean, he was basically the target of the interference. It was to make sure that he didn't get elected, so Trudeau could get in there. So, and he wasn't even interviewed in any of this. Okay. During the cross-examination of the public inquiry, Dong said he was not sure what quote-unquote irregularities Johnson was referring to, but said that he agrees with the assertion that he maintains relationships with the Chinese consulate. Dong told the commission that he believed involving international students as volunteers in Canadian election campaign is a, quote, beneficial experience for them, close quote, and that it gives Chinese students in particular a, quote, taste of democracy, close quote, which they lack at home. Yeah, I'm not so sure that the the risk-benefit analysis necessarily supports that course of action. He said that he had never seen anything to indicate that international students volunteering on his campaign were influenced by foreign actors. They are foreign. He said that the tasks assigned to them were at a low level, so they would not be able to influence policy in any way. But they voted. They voted for you to be the nominee for that riding. Dong said that he has seen reports of China attempting to interfere in Canadian democracy, but said he personally hadn't seen, quote, any evidence of it, close quote. Yeah, that's that willful blindness that Sam Coomer was just talking about. No, I think this guy is actually, he is in the tank. He is working with them, so he's an asset for the CCP. He's in on it. Loco said in his witness statement that he identified, quote, only one irregularity, close quote, with the nomination meeting in 2019. Dong's name was supposed to appear first on the ballot before his competitor Bangu Jing, and had told voters to vote for the first name on the ballot. Loco explained that it was common practice to tell voters where their candidate would be listed, especially in areas where they may have trouble reading the names on the ballot. Why would they have trouble reading the names? Is it because their English is not so good? But halfway through the nomination vote, Loco was advised that Dong was listed second on the ballot. He thought that Dong had lost the nomination contest because of the mix-up with the order of the names on the ballot. To his surprise, Dong narrowly won the nomination. Well, that probably has everything to do with them writing his name on their arms, if I recall correctly. So yeah, nothing to see here, folks. Sure. And here is Andrew Lawton. He's tweeting out a little clip, and he says, former Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole says the vaccine mandate issue was, quote unquote, largely why the Conservatives went from being the projected winners of the 2021 election to losing. This is some brazen revisionism. Okay, so here is some of the testimony that is ongoing currently, and here we go.
So what was your understanding then, based on the modeling on election day, of where the Conservatives would end up in terms of seats that day?
Yeah, reliving those last few days of the campaign, we went from winning the seat count a week before the election with a small, modest minority, to on election day losing the seat count and still winning the popular vote. We saw the vote changing largely on the vaccine and the vaccine mandate issue. But on election night, when we knew we were going to lose, my campaign manager had said, our models and how the vote goes, you should end up with about 127, 128 seats, which will be a historic level for opposition. And when you consider it was a pandemic election, we were largely on the wrong side of public opinion on the vaccine mandate issue, which is, in my view, why the Prime Minister called the election. That was being briefed to me to say, calm down, you did okay. You'll be able to live to fight another day. And
you see why we can't let weak men run the show around here. They bring hard times. This is the most tepid, bland, weak, spineless, I think, response that the Blandrew Shear without the nibbles could possibly be giving right now. He should be spitting mad. He should be fighting for his damn country and for the survival of our democracy. And he's just kind of saying, oh, well, you know, it was the issues. This was an issues-based election. Yeah, like he's really downplaying the role that foreign interference played. So disappointing.
And stay on as leader. So I went in that night feeling, okay, we're going to end up with 127, 128 seats. And as returns were coming in that night, not that I asked for any detail, but that night there was already clear indication that a number of ridings were vastly outside of our modeling window, and the ridings were the same ridings that we had been complaining about with respect to foreign interference. We've never connected the two, and even months after, when I spoke about ranges, I always used to say, you know, between 5 and 9, 6 and 9. I would never be precise, but
Sorry, in terms of 5 and 9, in terms of what?
5 to 9 seats that I think were possibly changed as a result of foreign interference. Narrower margin seats where we had large numbers of people not voting and suspicions about voter suppression in those specific seats. Certainly nowhere near enough to change the results of the election, but for people in those seats, if they were undergoing intimidation or suppression measures, their democratic rights were being trampled on by foreign actors. So certainly it was serious, and that's how I formulated that rough view in my mind based on the modeling and from our anecdotal reports from the ground in the campaign about various forms of foreign interference.
That makes no sense. Yeah, it seems to me like he's in a state of denial. It's something like a plausible deniability here. He's really trying to downplay the. It's all about image with these guys, right? Like the image of democracy must be upheld. The integrity of our institutions, the outward-facing image of integral institutions must be maintained. Integrity be damned. Like, how the hell are we ever supposed to trust these guys if they can't be transparent with us? And Honey is saying he's lying. I feel like he's lying there too. I mean, did they get to him? What the hell is going on? And Cora saying O'Toole is a tool. No, a tool is useful. O'Toole is worse than that. Okay, so yeah, I feel like he's lying there. I don't know why he would want to downplay the impact of foreign interference, other than perhaps he's been targeted, you know, more so now, or maybe he's been turncoated or something like that. I don't know, but at the same time, like, he's just such a spineless jellyfish that this could just be his sort of standard response. And there is this. Maybe this is what happened to Erin O'Toole. Here's Naya Vanderstil, and she says, to me, this is revealing. Politicians do not deserve your esteem. Foreign State Intelligence Service feels that sending anonymous photos of naked women on WhatsApp is enough to get politicians to start to compromise state secrets. And it worked. And here is the article. This is from Political in the European Politico. This is from the UK. At least 6 men working in the UK Parliament received unsolicited messages, and the exchanges quickly turned sexual. London politicians, officials and journalists working in the UK Parliament are being targeted with alluring personalized messages and explicit images in what experts believe is a clear attempt to compromise them. Politico has so far identified 6 men, 4 staffers, a political journalist, and 1 senior Labour MP who all received unsolicited WhatsApp messages from 2 suspicious mobile numbers between October 2023 and February this year. All the messages were sent by one of 2 mobile phone numbers by users calling themselves alternatively Abby or Charlie. A 7th man, a Tory MP, has reportedly similarly worded messages to the police. According to one staffer who saw the messages, Politico has been unable to speak directly with the MP concerned. Many of the messages contain striking similarities, including personalized references to the victim's appearances at UK political events and drinking spots. In several cases, explicit photos were also sent. In at least one case, the victim reciprocated. So he sent the junk. He sent the dick pic back. Can you imagine? This is somebody. This is an unsolicited text that you're getting, a message on WhatsApp or whatever. So some person you don't even know reaches out to you on the internet with nudes, and you send your nudes back, huh? We're not exactly dealing with intellectual giants here, folks. These people are just utterly driven by their emotions. They have no self-discipline whatsoever. They should never be allowed to be in charge of anything because of this, because this is freaking clown world. Okay, that's I'll read a few more paragraphs here. A dossier of evidence compiled by Politico has been reviewed by 4 cybersecurity experts who agreed people in key positions in Parliament are being targeted with ill intent. Dominic Wolchak, head of Cybersecurity Institute at the University of Liverpool, said he believed the messages were part of a, quote, spear phishing attack, close quote, a highly personalized form of, quote unquote, phishing, meaning to gather compromising information on a victim. Quote, the purpose is most likely to simply obtain indecent images of the victims and then blackmail them, close quote, Wojciak said. Yeah, so I wonder if that's not what happened to Blandrew Shear without the dimples, Aaron O'Toole there. Maybe he got a message of a nice little chicken ball there, you know, with some very alluring imagery, and he sent the dick pic back, and now he's on the hook, so he's getting blackmailed. Here's Elon Musk, some good news. I like to sprinkle in a little bit of good news here. He's tweeting out this graphic. Traffic on X reaches an all-time high, and you know something else that he has been all over lately is the illegal immigration taking place at the southern border in the United States. I just thought I would plug that here. Maybe I should have lined something up for the program, but you guys were just talking about, like we were just talking about how the timing is about right for the next crisis, because right about now is when they unleash the whole COVID lockdown business on us in the lead up to the 2020 election. So yeah, it's March again. It's March Madness, right, guys? Like, beware the Ides of March. Well, it's April now. Pardon me, it's April. But COVID hit in March, and we're already into April, and we don't have the next emergency that they're going to use to steal the next election yet. So what's it going to be? And I think it's already a slow boil. It's the overwhelming of our systems with all the illegal immigration. There are some reports that multiple states actually issue driver's licenses to these people, and those states also only require driver's licenses to verify identity for the purposes of voter ID. So they might not even be legally in the country, but they can still get a license, and that will suffice for the purpose of voting. I'll be doing a little bit more digging into that. You know, as we move forward. I didn't confirm that, but that seems to be what some people are saying anyway. So, and this has been the strategy. I've been saying this for the longest time. This is the strategy of the Democrat Party. It has been for a very long time now. They're just importing a new voter base from the third world. They'll, give them their freaking credit cards and a place to stay and all this stuff, and they can be their saviors, so that there will be unending power for the left ad infinitum, and it will be the people who they brought in from the third world who will keep them in power. So I think that is probably, well, yeah, we're headed toward a kind of hybrid warfare. I mean, we're already in hybrid warfare, but it hasn't gone kinetic yet. And it's going to be really hard to tell who the good guys and bad guys are when they're inside our own borders. And there's a mixture of Chinese communists and jihadi groups running all over the place. But that is what we're up against. That's what I've been saying anyway, is this Islamunism, right? The Trantifa snowflakes are allying with the Islamunists, and it's self-licking ice cream cone down to hell. Hopefully they turn on each other before it comes to that. So that brings us all the way up to the Veterans for Freedom website, guys. You can subscribe to our newsletter by clicking subscribe here. Join Veterans for Freedom if you're a veteran by clicking join here, and support Veterans for Freedom by clicking support here. You can donate to us directly to help with our operational costs, like my StreamYard account and the website, or you can support the support fund by clicking support here. This is the fund that we pool everybody's donations and then send them off to a worthy Canadian suffering under this tyranny once a month, and everybody who donates gets a chance to vote on where those funds go. You can set it up with your buttons for your credit card here. If you don't want to use a credit card, you can set up your e-transfer to go to fund@veteransforfreedom.ca, preferably with the auto deposit enabled. But if you're not able to do that, please use the password fund for freedom. That's fund number 4 freedom, all caps fund number 4 all caps freedom. And we'll make sure that gets off to a worthy cause. And just a reminder, Carrie Sakamoto was our winner from last month. She was, we showed the video here. She was quite pleased when she found out that she won. So yeah, we're really proud of this around here. Please, whatever you can give is appreciated. And that brings us all the way back to Nietzsche. And he says, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. Maybe that's all that's really going on with Blandrew Shear without the dimples. I'm not sure. It's hard to say. But whatever it is, he's definitely lacking in his candor. And so he is lukewarm, and I should spit him from my mouth. He lacks the courage of his convictions. And that's what Jesus said, wasn't it? It was lukewarm, and I will spit them from my mouth. So yeah, that's how I think that encapsulates my sentiment around Aaron O'Toole. I can't even remember his name anymore. I'm so used to calling him Blandrew Shear without the nipples. But so it may just be the case that he's as weak as he ever was. And it may also be the case that he's compromised. So let's keep an eye on him. Okay. Stephanie is saying all politicians care about are nudes. Yeah, you're telling me. That's probably why we're in this mess. I mean, do you think that Justin Trudeau is the kind of guy who has a lot of self-discipline and control? I doubt it. They probably got him with a honeypot with some young girl or something like that at some point. Who knows? But he is very clearly working for them, and so I assume he's compromised. Honey says, thank you. It's my pleasure. Cindy says, thanks, Jeff Hearts. It may not feel like it, but we are #winning victory. Yeah, you know what? We got to celebrate those small victories around here. I really do think that they're getting pretty desperate. And we even see like Trudeau is actually starting. It sounds like he might actually be backing down on some of this stuff, particularly the immigration, the clip that I showed there earlier. He has been religiously just driving that immigration wedge his entire tenure. And, you know, now we see him starting to say, you know, maybe there are some things that we can do to rein this in. He's not going to say that he created that problem. It just happened. It grew organically on its own. But, you know, we'll take it. Evelyn says, take care all. Colleen says, thank you, Jeff. Stay warm, folks. Yeah, I know you are, Cindy. Okay. And Debbie says, great show. Thank you. My pleasure. Honey says, we are thankful. I believe that's what you mean to say. And Serena says, thank you, Jeff. Always an interesting show. My pleasure, Serena. Thank you so much for being with me. Lori says, great show, Jeff. Thank you. Do not comply. I will not. I live for spite. It is the sweetest motivation. And, you know, I think that's what soldiers do, basically, is we spite the tyrants, right? That's kind of our whole raison d'etre. So it's like I can't even help myself. I'm never going to comply. What was I just going to say? Oh, guys, I mentioned it on the live stream last night, but Anita Salisbury there, she's one of the regulars, and I accidentally blocked her. So Anita, if you're out there, I'd appreciate you maybe just giving me a comment here. Yeah, I accidentally blocked her because I was aiming for a spammer, and I ended up blocking her by accident. And I said it on the live last night right away. I was like, I did this by accident. And I reached out to Drew because, oh, there she is. Okay, perfect. Hi, Jeff. Lots of love. All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for chiming in there. I had to get Drew to unblock you because he's the only one with the master key to the Facebook. So anyway, I'm glad you're back. And it was short-lived. And Chet is saying, it's Gapril now. Stop being a bigot, Jeff. Yes, I will have to correct that. I will henceforth refer to it as Gapril. Kirsten has given us the /E. Grand Highlander has given us a /E. And Garban says, thanks for the great show, Jeff. Thank you, folks over there on Rebel. And to everybody who joined me this evening, stay frosty and stay safe.
Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs.